So guys, this is a video, or let's say a highlight of Fit-O-Be when he was in London. Like I said, this man is a man of wisdom. You can never get it wrong with this man. Take a listen. Let me get your views about it in the comment section.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I think you've seen this great people. It's wonderful. Well, back to your question. I'm sure like everybody, you get to a stage in your life when you find out that whatever you do makes little or no meaning in your life unless you're contributing something to building a better society. In my own case, my journey is not something I can tell you here because it was a very long journey. As a trader, which I am since today, I decided at one time, I was actually living in the UK here, that I'm going to go to most of the famous schools that I hear about. Because people often ask me, why do you have to do program in Oxford, LSE, Cambridge, Harvard, Columbia? I just decided I want to know whether these different people who go to this school have different brain or not. So I'm going to go to all of them. In 2001, I was doing a program, chief executive program in Kellogg Graduate School. And that was the final year of the Dean of Kellogg Graduate School, Professor Donald. It was his last year. He actually, can say, is the founder of the school. And it was the last year. This will take me a long time to explain what happened. He took us on a course called the World Economy. And we were there for about 2.5 months, call it 3 months. And the subject is World Economy. And in that entire period, he never said anything about Africa. So a day before the last day of that course, that is the day he's going to retire from that school. And I asked my hand, and I said, you never said anything about Africa. He said, I don't want to know about Africa. I said, yes. I went for something $1,000 to this job for this course, and I'm here, you didn't talk about my continent. And he said, tomorrow I'll tell you, which is the final day. The final day, the CEOs of various corporations, McDonald's, everybody, we were there, and he finished and looked at me and said, you want to know about Africa? I said, yes. He said, there's nothing called African economy. Nobody calls it Africa. Join me for lunch. So I went to lunch with him. After lunch, he said to me, let's take a walk by the lake. Kellogg Graduate School is on the back of the Michigan. So we walked, let's take a walk by the lake. As we were trying to walk, he said, do you have any of your country's currency? And I said, yes. I bought 100 naira, which was the highest denomination of my country's currency then. And I bought $100. He said, which of these two currencies do you prefer? I said, $1. He said, why? I said, because it's 100 naira to $1. So he said, you can have my $1. I'll keep you on. Now, I will continue to work again. After about a poll, he stopped again and said, I should bring back $1. So I felt, I'm going to lose this $1 now. Because I've already gotten 10,000 naira. By that exchange rate, I hope he's not taking it back. I asked me a question again, which of this do you prefer? I said $1. And he asked me again, why do I prefer $1? I answered exactly the same thing, because of the exchange rate. And he said to me, my name is Jacob. Professor Jacob, that's called me Donald Jacobs. That's my name. I started teaching in this school as far back as late 50s, early 60s. secondary school for over 50 years, and I've been teaching economics, and I've served on board of many more. Economy is driven by faith. It's not the rate of exchange that makes you believe in another country's currency. It's the amount of faith you have in your country, because there's no hope in it. That's what drives the exchange. Italians keep their money in lira. Chinese in Chinese yuan. Malaysians in ringgit. There was no euro there. Germans in German marks. British in pounds. And went around the world and said, well, because you don't have faith in your country, that's why you could find currency is a favor. I said, what's the favor? He said, go back to your country. We've been with you for 3 months. You are actually in the wrong business. I've always been talking with you. Remember, I've always been talking. I said, yes. Because I was just, every now and then, he comes, we talk, we do. Say, go back to your country and participate in building public wealth. Well, Africa, your country in Africa is like that. They don't have people who are committed to building public wealth. Public wealth enriches everybody, individual wealth impoverishes everybody. Go and be part of public life. That's where the talent are needed. Because they are the ones who are going to build another country. But the father retires in the private sector. And they left where they should be for those who are not supposed to be there. And the consequence is that things are going wrong. Anyway, with this long story, I just told you, I went back to Nigeria. And in my state in particular, the children were not in school for over a year because there was strike. And I decided that whatever brought us to this level, I'm going to fight it. Because I know the impact of education on development. And I decided to go into public life without voting for one day. And that's my job. And I watch people. Life is meaningless unless you're contributing anything to building a better society. All about whatever you achieve personally, well, anything is nothing. You must contribute in building a better society where everybody benefits. Thank you.
African countries have been what you call a debt quagmire, where their debt stock has grown over time and without corresponding increase in revenues and also improvements in lives of citizens. So, in your own experience and your own opinion, what do you think would have been the cause of these problems? And moving forward, how do you think leaders should think about managing government resources in order to bring out the best outcomes for citizens?
Well, let me correct something, because people say it's been frugal in managing this and everything. That's not about being frugal. I'm not managing public wealth. You have to manage it for the interest of the public. Africa is not a poor continent. Africa is poor managed. I can tell you today that Africa is a continent of incredible future, because they have enormous resources. I do not imagine any continent today in the world that have the resources of Africa. Africa has 30%, one single continent, of the world mineral resources today. Of course, you know it's the second biggest continent in size, second biggest in population, the biggest in the nation. Africa, in terms of mineral resources, 30%. Africa has 60% of arable land or cultivated. Africa, of course, in terms of solar power, almost 60%. of the solar power resources globally. I can go on and on. We have the most youthful population of about 1.4 billion population. 60% are in their productive age, not our continent. In fact, by 2030, we should have 40% of the world productive age. So we could go on and on. What Africa lacks is to have leadership that is committed to good governance and can unleash this enormous world into productivity. And if that happens, it's a continent that will compete with us. The biggest continent being Asia contributes about 35% of about world GDP. Africa still contributes less than 5%. So you could see the enormous gap. So for me, it is about the right leadership to be able to unlock this enormous potential and get Africa right.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And piggyback on the point on right leadership, I think I'm going to bring up a point that a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people want to contribute their own quota in terms of development and politics and contributing to growth of the continent, but they would always say politics is a bit dirty, politics is a bit tricky and murky. And like I was discussing with a friend of mine, and his point was, how do we move the conversation from tribal, ethnic, money-related politics to more policy-oriented and more development-oriented policy in terms of deepening our political space on the continent?
Well, it's very simple. It's to get involved. When I got involved in politics, people tell me what you were telling me now, I was already, like you said, doing well a little bit, where I was youngest chairman of the bank in Nigeria, good business, you can afford to fly on better side of the plane and everything. So why are you going to get involved in this madness? You know, but if you don't get involved, those people you think are dead will decide your future and your fate. And like I said today, we have a situation where leadership is our problem. I have a situation where you can say the lunatics are in charge of their son, so we must get them out of the place. And all of us have to organize and say, well, it can't happen. Unless you go in, good people have to sacrifice and get involved. When I got involved, it wasn't easy. It took me years of campaign, took me years of being in court, and as you know, I was impeached twice. Even as governor, I was removed from office twice. People just can't go. And I always say people, when that happened, when you talk about being frugal, when I went in, I found out that we had a government where people were not investing in the critical areas of development. There was good corruption. We're not investing in education. We're not investing in health. We're not pulling people out of poverty. Rather, we're investing in all sorts of things that have nothing to do with governance. And you be smart to it and said, this is where we're going to go. We're going to invest. The only measurable coordinates of development is education, health, and pulling people out. That's where we're going to go. That's what we're going to do. So, what first is that good people like you have to be involved. The reason why you think it's dead is that you have decided, I don't want to get involved. It's like, how do I say people? I lived here for years. I lived in England for years. And I once had a squatter problem where I bought the house and I was still trying to renovate it. Squatters came into it. So what do? Abandon the house for squatters? No. I told them they must go. And I pursued it Nigerian means good to everything. I remember telling my wife, we all spotters, we spot inside here. Because I found the house and they was, I think the next spotter. And eventually, they left. Called a lawyer, I was in court with them, was in everything. And every evening I made sure I went there. And that, of course, what am I trying to say? We need to be involved. We need to get involved. The more good people comes into it, the better. But if good people decide it is not our business, I don't want to get involved. I don't want it continues the way it is. So, good people must get involved.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Just move to my next question. I think in Africa in times we've had different nuances in terms of getting capital to the continent. So on one extent we've relied on FDI, on another extent we've relied on aid, on another extent we've relied on multilateral institutions to get funding. But obviously, for instance, you've seen the news over the last few months and things have changed. The large DFI pulled out funding, USAID pulled out funding, a lot of funding for the continent. A lot of DFIs globally are reducing their exposure to Africa. Do you think, or what would you think is the best way to put Africa's best foot forward in terms of attracting capital to the continent and saying we are open for business? How would we go about in attracting the right kind of capital in order to ensure that we have development over the next 25 years?
Well, as governor and as someone who is involved in issues of governance in my own country, I use Nigeria as an example. Nigeria doesn't need foreign support. We don't need foreign support. Whatever we're looking for, we have it there. What Africa needs is good governance. We have the resources. You don't go looking for, whenever I see people say they're going around the world looking for foreign investors, I laugh. Nobody looks for foreign investors. Foreign investment is like being a money relationship. If you have money here, if you close this door, the bills will come. So Africa have the money. What we need is those who manage the money very well, the bills will come. That's the foreign investment. Everybody wants to make profit. If Africa can provide deal with issue of insecurity today, political stability, have intangible access of rule of law and order, investors will come. Nobody goes to invest in an insecurity place or where there is no rule of law. Because the man has to be alive to enjoy his profit. He doesn't have to go in a war-torn area. He has to enjoy the profit. You can have better returns in Africa. But have better returns, people will come when there is security, when there is law and order, when there is political stability, when they are sure. So you don't say, I'm going to Ghana. I'm sure if I get there, invest my money, if there's an issue, I can go to the court, there will be orderliness, things will work, and everything, people will come. A global world has enormous capital looking for where to invest. You only attract it by putting your house in order. There's nothing that makes UK better than Africa. Nobody. Not food. Nothing. I fear. Where is that food? I can tell you. Where's that wedding? So why are people coming here? They come here because if I'm here now and I'm saying, you slap me, within seconds, police will go over the place here and arrest me for slapping me. If that happens in some place in Africa, I'm actually saying, you who slap me, can actually go police to lock me up after you have slapped me. So these are things we must get the rule of law and everything. When it's working, and I'll tell you who is going to be the first foreign investors we're going to get. In the 80s and 90s, all business schools, I wasn't lucky to come in, but I can tell you, all the schools I've been, whether it was Oxford, Cambridge, LSE and everything, were all Asian and Chinese people. They've all gone back. My friends here, maybe school, have all gone back. In fact, there was a time, the dean of Kellogg Business School was an Indian. The dean of Oxford Business School was an Indian. Is that they were all over the place, but they've all gone back, most of them, because it's a conducive environment. Doctors are going back and everything. So if you create a conducive environment, the first investors that come to Africa are the African diaspora, because they will see the profit. Why would I give, for example, give my money, invest my money here and make 1%, when I can make 10% in Africa? The reason why I want 10% of here is that an intrinsic thing that is there, which is peace of mind, that your money cannot go missing without somebody paying for it. So that 9% differential is peace of mind. And that is what is lacking in Africa. How to like governance and people will invest more in Africa. And I can tell you, it's a content of the future because everything is there.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Moving on to my next question. I think I'll speak on a topic you're very passionate about, which is education. We've spoken about how we need to equip our students, equip our teachers with 21st century skills so that they'll be competitive in the global landscape. And if you look at global or continental trends in terms of investment in education, it probably isn't up to the global standards in terms of percentage of budgets. How important do you think investing in education is, and what do you think the return would be in terms of development of the continent over time?
Every study has shown that the more a country or a nation, the more educated they are, the more developed. Is the engine of development, is education. Because it's education that brings about everything. The reason why colonization countries moved to the front head of Africa is investment in education. Education is an expense, not investment. Because you could see the return immediately when you did the right thing with the education. So for me, and you can see it, whether you want to measure, the only non-measure of development today is HDI, Human Development Index. And that's driven by health, education, and per capita income. And it's a very simple thing. And if you compare nations and countries, you will see it very clearly. It's not a rocket science. I always say people, let's take one of the world powerhouse today in terms of development is China. If you compare Nigeria, the end of Africa, with China, in 1990, Nigeria per capita is $556. China is 317. What did China do from 1990 to date? We are now about 830 or call it below 1,000 per capita, and China is about 13,000. So we're not even 10% of where they are now. What do they do? They invested in education, they invested in health, they invested in pulling their people out of poverty. In 1990, the number of people living in poverty in China is 750 million. Nigeria is 50 million. So there are 15 times the number of people living in poverty than we are. people living in poverty than China. So what they do, in fact, twice the number of people that live in poverty in Nigeria today than China. Well, twice the number. For a country that is about 7 times our population. So these are things you must look at and ask, what did they do? And that is what our leaders are not asking. A country like Vietnam came out of war. In 1990, Vietnamese, the capital, Vietnam, the capital, is just about $100, $109. When we were 556. Now, we're almost 1/5 of the capital. Because they're not above 4,000. So if that crisis, you ask yourself, how did we get here? They invested in education. They invested in putting them out of poverty. And it's not a budget thing. It's not how much investment are you going to put? The countries in Africa are borrowing money to invest in physical infrastructure that makes no money. You cannot invest in physical infrastructure while abandoning human infrastructure. That is the foundation. If you free this thing and it's looking good and you go and bring somebody from a village who doesn't know how to, if you come, you need this place to keep. For the next 1 year, you will be in the same place. So you need to invest in the proper infrastructure. The foundation is the human infrastructure. And you can go because you have the resources. You can do that and invest properly in it. And the more you invest in it, the more you see the return. Is that something that you can feel? So it is. China did not do anything. Vietnam did not do anything. No, other Asian countries were doing it. All they did is invest properly. Your resources, that's why when you say you're frugal, I said there's nothing frugal about it. If you invest your resources properly, you get the returns. So you don't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to grow my GDP, I'm going to grow my per capita, and then you're saying it's just news. When you're not doing the right things, there's the right things that can make it work. I just ask you, why do people live in this country? One of the biggest contributors to the Western GDP is intangible aspects of rule of law, law and order. If it gives them more, contributes more, so you have to. These are things we need to have in Africa. So it's not time to continue to go around saying you're looking for foreign investment, you're looking for foreign capital, when the capital is in your house.
Madam Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. We'll open the audience for questions. We'll have a few questions that your schedule can take, and we'll keep the final closing thoughts on the.
The first one, I was asked by someone who just came back from China that I must make sure I ask you this. Because you're a non-trader, you're not a businessman. One of the biggest importers in Nigeria is not. And so the question is, why did you explore local manufacturing in Nigeria rather than importing? And then the second one I have is, when you look back to your life, both in private sector and in public service, what do you think is your biggest regret so far?
I'm involved in local manufacturing. Probably more than I'm involved in importing, where I used to do business. I'm involved in a number of corporations. But in reality, I'm manufacturing. I'm using Nigeria as a case in point. The system is against productivity. What we need to fight in Nigeria today, that is Nigeria, there is the problem. You need to fight the monster of corruption. Corruption kills entrepreneurship. Nobody is an entrepreneur in a corrupt country. Because it doesn't give, you have to start a business, you have to take time. It gives professionalism. I asked a group of young people recently, I said, how many of you want to be a professor? No. Why? Because of corruption. And I'll give you an instance. Very simply. In the 80s, I was in the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. If I had a degree in the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, I had automatic admission to do masters in Oxford or Cambridge then. Because I had lecturers like Chinua Achebe, Chukwuka Igbo, Chimamanda's father was teaching us. So we have these several professors recognized all over the world. They had a salary of 2,000 naira. 2,000 naira then was about $4,000. And they sell the top range car that is assembled in Nigeria, 505 Peugeot, sells for 7,500. So in 6 months, a professor can afford to buy a 505. And you know that they travel abroad, they come here and everything for 200 naira, and then they will bring you to London and back. Today, a professor earns 4,000 naira. So 400,000 naira a month. If you're paid. Because they might not be paid. Now, we have a situation where we are what we call National Assembly members. Government provided each of them a vehicle that is 60 million naira. A professor is paid 400. So it is not to be paid in a year and 4.8 million. 5 million. So if he wants to buy qualification for being a professor, then you must have PhD and have been teaching for 10 years. So you have first degree, second degree, and PhD, well, and you've been teaching to become all the way to professor. Qualification for being National Assembly member is class 5. So all those years the West is educating is enough for you to become a legislator. They bought a car for you for 160 million by the government. If the professor wants that car, he needs, without eating, without anything, he needs to keep his money for 32 years. He will not eat, he will not do it, he needs 32 years. For 5 million to get to 160 million. So that's corruption. It kills entrepreneurship. It kills hard work. What is my biggest regret in being in government? I don't think I regret anything. The only thing I lost by going to government is money. And I can tell you, the one thing I don't think anybody can feel he lost his money. Because it makes no meaning. At some stage in your life, money makes no meaning. Because things you can afford it. You know, people can go, you know, I was just telling somebody yesterday, he said, oh, you stay in this hotel, and you pay 180 pounds. Well, I'm staying in your hotel, I'm paying 1,000 something. It doesn't make any meaning. We just want to have a room where to sleep. The higher you pay does not even make you sleep well. There's no relationship to the way you sleep. You know, I even told him, I said, even for people like me who want to go and give money to health centers, to this, to that, I won't even pay that one because I will be awake. Because of the amount of money I pay. Because I'll be thinking, why did I pay this much to sleep? Because the higher I pay, can I come with one? I just paid 1,000. The money has come. I thought today we have been longer, so I can cover my money. So the person that paid the smaller one, and that's it. And it makes sense and everything. So I stay in a particular address. As long as it says it. So that's the reason I make stand. For me, nothing. I don't regret anything. What I want to do is to be, let people say he passed through here, I made an impact. For example, schools were closed when I started being governor. We were number 26 in WAEC and NECO. By the time I left, we were number 1. So for me, that's what I want to do. The only method of development while I was governor is related development goal, which was signed in the year 2000, ended in 2015. I became governor in 2006, 2007. By the time it closed, my state was number 1. That's the reason I want to pass through here. We are claiming to be a saint. We are claiming to be anything, but I made this impact. People can say he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that. You know, in the critical area of development, for me that is important.
Thank you. I think is missing in your talk today and previously. And I'll start with a very short preamble. Tolstoy talks about in War and Peace that you can't bring the history of a people to a single person. We seem to talk about leadership, like leadership is the only thing that we need in Africa. But as you rightly mentioned, the militaries have taken over an asylum. But remember, the asylum has inmates. And the inmates are our people. Our people have created the system that has led to the leaders that we have. So the question is, how are we going to change the mentality of our people? How are we going to educate them? WAEC and ECHO, all those exams, that's no education. We have lost our culture in the post-colonial era. We have lost the very fabric of our society. And no one's talking about this. This is why we have the systems that we have today. No one wants to be a professor because a system has agreed that the people who need you do not even need a primary education qualification. So what's the strategy in the next 25 to 50 years in ensuring that our people get out of their asylum? Because if they do get out of their asylum, then we're not looking for leaders of an asylum anymore. We're looking for leaders of a stable, forward-looking community.
I'm very entitled with your position. That is why you have to get involved. Because we can't stay outside. We're recruiting people who are willing to do it. People said to me, oh, Peter, you were able to do this successfully. I said, no. I had a team that was there with me. Who said to me, you can't do this. We need people like you. We need people who say, no, you cannot do it. I didn't just succeed as a governor by just winning the Lord on my own. I had a team of people who said, no, you cannot do it. I have a policy. Anybody can tell you this. If you agree with me, if I hire you, when I was in the financial industry or business, you agree with me, in 10 minutes I'll fire you. That means you have no contribution. Everybody here cannot agree with me. If everybody here says they like me, I have to leave. There's a danger. There must be people who disagree with you. There must be people who say no to you. And that's the part of what is lacking again in leadership in Africa. You need people. When I said I changed school, it will shock you. How did it happen? As governor, I visited every secondary school in Anambra State. And when I go in there, of their teachers to leave. I want to listen to the students. The young people were telling me the truth. Their principal and their teachers can't tell me. So every senior prefect of the secondary school had my phone number. Because I think they couldn't talk to me. I will get an example of where I visited a school and promised to do something in that school. Promised to do something. I said, by the time you come back in 3 months, you'll be done. I visited that area again, and I always want to, because what we used to do is to insist that all our planning, budgeting, everything must be demand-driven. So the people need to talk because of that. I went to that area, and when it was question and answer, this young girl, Tiny, raised her hand. And I said, what did you say? He's in first year of secondary school. Charlie, I want to listen to you, my small daughter. He said, Governor, why do you make promise you don't keep? You can imagine a ball field, me governor. And he said, I keep everybody ran to her to take the microphone. I said, listen, let's listen to her. When she reminded me what I did in her school, she was right. And I talked to the commissioner, I said, listen, before we leave here, I'm going to give this girl a check. Because it was a check, the principal everything had given us the quote. All we need is to hand over the check, but she not to do that work. I said, that check must be given to this young girl with apology here. The principal, all of them had come to stop us from talking. But when I bought that check and gave her, you know what they did? They carried the girl on their head. So they couldn't talk to me. So many people like you who will take us back there. It's not going to be an easy war. It's not going to be done by Peter. We need so many people saying no. You're right. One of the biggest problems we face in Africa today is that psychophancy have taken over the entire place. So I'm a leader, I'm a governor, I'm a president, listen. Everybody is busy calling you with excellency. I said, since you came here, the world has changed. Even when you know you're not doing anything, people are telling you you're the best. So you need to bring back a system where people will say no to you. But I agree with you, we need to go back. It will take time, but people need to be involved.
Thank you. I don't have, that was an incredibly eloquent question, and I actually really appreciate that. I don't have a quote from Tolstoy. What I do have is, funnily enough, you came to my wedding to support your friend Unu Jerry Wananeze and Zelu Zichuku, who's my father. So I have a picture. But I do have a question, one follows on from the other. I think the political climate, but I do have a question, one follows on from the other. I think the political climate in Nigeria is changing in that it seems like many governors, senators, House of Reps, everybody are moving to a certain political party in common. And I wanted to ask you about the importance of opposition parties in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, and I wanted to ask about the impact or potential impacts that has on the economy and investment at a larger scale in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, given your banking.
There's no opposition in Nigeria. I'm supposed to be the opposition leader. You see, for you to have a proper opposition, you must have some sort of a system that guarantees certain privileges and everything to opposition. Let me use here, for example, in the UK, they have opposition because in the parliament, where is it actually parliament that probably determines everything? In the parliament, parliament, the leader of the opposition is a member. The people who form federal government are members. So they are paid by the system. The system sustains them. So if the foreign secretary is going to go to Commonwealth gathering, the system also pays for a shadow foreign secretary to go. So you have in South Africa, for example, first is that the parliamentary system is about the number of votes you receive. So in South Africa, ANC in 2019 had about something votes. In 2024, it was about 40%. So they had 400 member house. So South Africa today they have 160 members, or the 40% of one house. Democratic Alliance, the main opposition, moved from 20 to 27. They have more members. And in South Africa, you want, like in all nations of the world, if there's an election and less than 30% of registered voters cast their votes, you repeat the election. Go and check all the elections in the past 3 years, whether it was Mexico, Canada, UK, Ghana, South Africa, Indonesia, and I go on and on. None of them have less than 55%, and people say 60% voter register participation. In Nigeria, it was under 25%. We have 93 million people registered, less than 25% cast their votes. In every other country, you cannot form a government alone unless you receive 50% plus one vote of vote cast. In Nigeria, in that 25%, the government that is sitting today receives about 38%. Overall, it's about 8 million, which is less than 10% of registered voters. And it forms government alone. So in South Africa, they couldn't form government. The DA leader is there. That's why they can have Julius Malema and still in parliament. Because it is proportional representation. Same thing goes whether it's in Indonesia, anything. You have to have proportional representation. If there is proportional representation in Nigeria today, the leading government, the people in government have 8%, call it 40. We have about 100-man Senate. So they have 100 senators. The second, this year, has something, call it as, they have 30 senators. We have 26%, 27%. So we have 25 senators. And in it, nobody can, after election, nobody can leave his party and not have that party. If you do it in the morning, in the evening, it will replace you. Because it is our proportional representation. It is us. So you can't have people moving the way they are moving in Nigeria. So Nigeria, with all due respect, for now it is not democratic. And I said, freedom. Yeah, they are going to one place, and I think it's good they go to one place. So that we can put all of them together. And the election will be Nigeria versus them. Because I think we got the time when all of them have to come together so that we deal with everybody together. Not separately. Because what they are moving around, is it because of ideology? Is it because of the welfare of the people? What is it all about? No. For you to have have opposition. In fact, a democratic person should encourage opposition. You should encourage other people's view. Encourage people. You should learn. A leadership, once you choose to be a leader, you must be a listener and a learner. Because you don't know everything. Anyone who knows everything should not lead. It's an idiot. Because you don't cause problems. You have to listen 24 hours a day. And that's what it should be. So when they are moving, it's supposed to be encouraged. So for me, and there are no impact in Africa when it comes to development. The impact that we need selfless, committed leaders who understand the purpose of leadership and can drive that process. Know that it is not about acquiring this, acquiring that. It is about investing in this immeasurable things that people want to pursue.
Thank you very much.
My take in it is that you should be running with me, not just me, because it is difficult to be doing what I'm doing today. Very, very difficult. If I tell people what I go through, even coming here and answering this question, you will say no, I shouldn't do it. Because the first thing the government tells you is that you're demarketing Nigeria. Somebody has stolen our money, came here and bought the house. He's not demarketing Nigeria. But if I come to London Business School and say the truth, I'm demarketing it. I don't know when truth has become the market. It's actually selling it. I believe that Nigeria have an incredible future. And people need to work on it. People need to invest in it. Today people are hungry in Nigeria because of lack of productivity. Because we have only what it takes. Just last night, somebody said to me, oh, what are you going to say? What are you talking about people being hungry? And I give you the examples I say every day. Nigeria have no reason to be occupied and any other money for oil. Education assets. Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Algeria. Bangladesh produces annually between 50 to 60 million tons of rice, or milk rice. Bangladesh is 148,600 square kilometers of land, with over 170 million people. Nigeria is 6 times more than Bangladesh, and don't produce 10% the amount of rice Bangladesh produces. In fact, the two biggest states in Nigeria, Niger State is 76.3 thousand square kilometers. The second biggest is Borno, 70.8 thousand square kilometers. Combined is 147, Bangladesh is 148. Just two states. And Bangladesh has a population of over 170 million. These two states are under 15 million. So they have more space for cultivation. We're not doing that. So we can make more money from agriculture than we make from oil. So what are people talking and everything? But everybody is there talking about oil. You are talking about investment. We don't need to attract investment. Netherlands makes 122 million euros. 122 billion euros in 2022-23 from agricultural products. Netherlands without that is 10,000 square kilometers. Niger State is 2.5 times Netherlands and in fertile land. So we can change Africa. We don't need to be looking for anything outside Africa. We just need to have serious-minded people who can even
everything that comes out in the mouth of P2B is full of wisdom. No hate, no shades. Everything he said is as it is. P2B is the only leader, or let's say the only politician that has no fraud record. Back when he was the governor of Anambra State, 8 good years, he had no bad record. Till today, he still not have any bad record. He had never insulted anybody. He had never called names. He had never blamed anybody, attack anybody. No. If you like attack him, he will come in a pleasant way. This man was the reason why there was no revolution in Nigeria 2020 election after the INEC chairman called on the election result. He was the one that calmed the obedient movement down. He said, no, this is not the way forward. Let us do things right. In order to be called Your Excellency, your way to the seat must be excellent. That is the only reason why obedient and Nigerians did not start up a revolution against INEC and judiciary that 2020 election. And if it happened again next election, let's see how it goes. I don't know how it will go, but let me get your views in the comment section. Like I said, P2B have proven to be the best and will remain the best candidate. And P2B have said that if he did not win the election come 2027, that he's not going to come out anymore because of age, because he's a man that obeys, that understands, and also obeys rules and regulations, and also understand order. He said after this election that he will no longer be fit to come out as the next candidate to become the next president of Nigeria. So right now, we Nigerians, we have just this 2027 to make it right. If we miss it again, it's gone. And the funny thing is that many Northerners are now coming together in support of P2B. They are all, even Northern leaders, they are now coming out to support P2B. Why? Because themselves, most of them are among those that helped Tinubu to win the election, and happened that after 2 years in office, Tinubu have not done anything in the north. So now the Northern elders have come out to collide or push, or let's say seek for the front seats on those that are campaigning for P2B in the north. So that means right now, P2B stands higher chance of winning in the north, even though he won the last election. But right now, he will have more eyes and more ears everywhere to make sure that nothing is being rigged in the next election. It's going to be very hard for rigging to happen next in the next election, because P2B have eyes and ears now everywhere, because everybody that supported Tinubu last election have woken up and said that no, this is the best candidate for us. Let me get your views in the comment section, guys. I'll be guys in my next video.